The HOA president tried to have my brother's therapy garden demolished. While he begged her to stop, she thought she was untouchable, that she could bully us into silence. What she didn't know, I'm a forensic accountant, and once I followed the money, her entire empire crumbled.
Gee.
Act 1. The conflict begins. When I bought the little house on Primrose Lane, I thought it'd be a fresh start. My younger brother, Don, has an autoimmune condition, and doctors said stress was his worst enemy. So I moved us somewhere quiet, by a lake, with neighbors who waved politely, and lawns that looked like postcards. For a while, it felt like peace. Then came Karen Schmidt. Karen wasn't just the HOA president, she was a dictator with a clipboard. Mid-50s, blonde bob cut stiff as a helmet, pearl earrings, a smile that never reached her eyes. She didn't greet you so much as scan you, like a TSA agent at the gate. Our first run-in was almost laughable. Don had set a decorative watering can on the porch, an old, rusted heirloom from our grandfather. I thought it added character. Karen slapped us with a 75 violation notice for unapproved exterior decoration. I actually chuckled. Really? Over a watering can? Karen wasn't laughing. She hissed, "Remove it, or we will." That night, I caught her sitting in her SUV at the end of our street, just watching. It felt less like a neighborhood, more like surveillance. A week later, my neighbor Steve, retired mailman, eccentric but sharp, dropped by. He leaned on my fence and muttered, "Careful with Karen. She fined a deaf guy for wind chimes once, drove out 2 families for having the wrong paint color. She's not about rules, she's about control." I shrugged it off at first, but in my gut, I knew Steve was right. Karen wasn't testing us, she was circling. Act 2. Escalation and breaking point. Don loved gardening. It was his therapy. So together, we built a little herb and flower patch in the backyard. Nothing fancy, just lavender, basil, and a cedar planter he designed himself. For the first time in weeks, I saw him smiling. That's when the hammer fell. One Tuesday, a flatbed truck rolled up. 2 workers jumped out with tools, heading straight for our yard. Don froze. I rushed out, blocking their path. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" One shrugged. "Work order from the HOA says this structure has to come down." Behind them, Karen strutted up the sidewalk, clipboard in hand. "You were warned. Illegal modification. They're just doing their job." I snapped. "This is my property." Karen smirked, eyes darting to Don, who stood trembling beside the planter. "Rules are rules. If you can't comply, maybe you shouldn't live here." The workers started dismantling the cedar frame. Don's voice cracked. "Please, stop. That's mine." But they just laughed. That moment broke me, watching my brother plead for something that gave him hope. While Karen smirked like it was entertainment, I felt powerless, humiliated, and furious. That night, Don barely spoke. He sat staring at the empty spot in the yard where his garden had been, and I sat with a stack of violation notices, feeling like the walls were closing in. Maybe my brother was right. Maybe we never should have moved here. Maybe I was stupid to think we'd find peace under an HOA tyrant. For the first time, I thought about giving up, selling, walking away. But then, the switch flipped. I'm a forensic accountant. Numbers, paper trails, money, that's my language. And something about Karen's smug confidence nagged at me. Bullies like her don't just stop at power tripping. They usually profit, too. So I dug hours at night combing through HOA filings, receipts, invoices. And there it was. Evergreen Property Solutions. A company supposedly paid for landscaping and repairs. But the payments were small, repetitive, suspicious. I followed the trail. And guess where the money went? To Carol Jenkins, the HOA treasurer. At first, I thought she was in on it. But when I cornered her privately, she broke down in tears. "She forced me," Carol whispered. "Karen said if I didn't sign, she'd foreclose on me. She makes me funnel everything into her development company. She wants to buy out the block, sell it for condos." It wasn't just harassment. It was extortion. Karen was driving families out, scooping up property cheap, and lining her pockets. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about Don's garden. It was about stopping Karen before she destroyed anyone else's life. Act 3. The climax. The annual HOA meeting was coming up. Steve helped rally the neighbors, whispering that something big was about to drop. The community center was packed that night. People restless, tired of Karen's fines and threats. Karen walked in like royalty, heels clicking, clipboard in hand. Order, order, she barked, gavel slamming the table. First matter, foreclosure proceedings against Carol Jenkins. Carol sat pale, shaking. Karen was about to ruin her publicly. That's when I stood up. Actually, Karen, before you start throwing stones, maybe the neighbors should see what you've been hiding. I connected my laptop to the projector. Bank records flashed on the wall. Transfers from HOA accounts straight into Evergreen Property Solutions, then into Primrose Development, LLC. Karen's shell company. Gasps filled the room. Steve shouted, "She's been stealing from us." Phones whipped out, recording everything. Karen's face turned crimson. "This is lies. He's unstable. Don't listen to him." But then Carol stood, voice trembling. She said, "It's true. She threatened me. She forged my signature." The room erupted. Years of resentment boiled over angry voices, demands for answers. Karen tried to shout them down, but the tide had turned. And then the doors burst open. Two detectives strode in, warrant in hand. "Karen Schmidt, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and racketeering." The look on her face, shock, rage, panic was priceless. She lunged for her clipboard, babbling about bylaws, as the cops cuffed her right there in front of everyone. The neighbors cheered. Some clapped, others cried. Steve leaned over to me and muttered, "Told you she'd get hers." Karen was dragged out, her little kingdom collapsing behind her. Closing line. Bullies thrive on fear, but the second you shine a light, their power crumbles.